Welcome friends. In this tutorial we study about Introduction to ASP.NET. ASP.NET is a software package which is used to create dynamic web applications. ASP.NET works on the top of HTTP protocol and it uses the HTTP command and policies to set up browser to server two-way communication and cooperation. ASP.NET used to produce interactive data-driven web application over the internet. ASP.NET Web Form extends the event-driven model of interaction to the web applications. The browser submits a web form to the web server and the server returns a full markup page or HTML page in the response. All client-side user activities are forwarded to the server for stateful processing. In this figure, we can see how client send a request to the server and how server respond to that request and send a markup or a HTML code to the client. Thank you. Welcome friends. In this video we will see how to install Visual Studio. For installing Visual Studio, we need a setup file of Visual Studio. You can download it from internet. Open your setup file and run it. New window will be open. Click on Install Microsoft Visual Studio. It will take some load time to set up. Now we can see installation wizard is open. It will also take some time. Next, and you will see where you want to store your Visual Studio. Give next and now installation will be started. It will take 20 or more than 20 minutes to complete setup. So go for coffee and come after some times. After that, new window will be pop up. Press exit. Setup is completed. Thank you. Welcome friends. In this video we will learn how to develop our first application. We have installed Visual Studio 2010 in our machine. So to open the Visual Studio, go to Start menu, in Programs, select Visual Studio 2010 and Microsoft Visual Studio 2010. So it will open Visual Studio. For creating a new website, go to File menu, in New tab, select a website. It will ask you to select in which language you want to create your website. There are two languages in .NET, Visual Basic and Visual C#. Select a Visual C# and select ASP.NET Empty Website. Select the folder where you want to store your website. I have selected my folder on the desktop called Hello World. Press OK. Website is created. Now go to Solution Explorer, which is right side of Visual Studio IDE. Click on Solution bar and select New Item and add new web form. You can give here your own name to web form, but we have given default. Every ASP.NET web page have extension .AISPX. Now click on Add button. It will generate some code. There are two types of views, design views and source views. You can switch over to design view when you want to see your application in design mode. Now I want to display Hello World in my web page, so I have typed Hello World. Now switch over to source view. In the form tag, automatically div tag is generated and div tag contain Hello World. Now to run the website, go to the debug menu and select Start without debugging. So this was our first application called Hello World. Thank you. Welcome friends. In this tutorial we will see how to create dynamic website. We have already created Hello World example. So we have now a website which is already created. But now we are going to convert that website into dynamic website. Go to the Solution Explorer and click on default.xpx. We have one code file default.aspx.cs, which is a code file for this page default.axps. Double click on that .cs file. We can see one code is there in the .cs file. Now for creating a dynamic application, we now create one variable of protected type. After the data type, and we'll give message is equal to hello world. Means now message variable contains hello world. Now we want to display this dynamic variable in our web page. So in the source, write less than character and percentage. Look, ASP.NET has automatically completed the tag. Now write is equal to and your variable name means message. IntelliSense will be displayed to select message. Now go to run. Select run without debugging and press OK. We can see we have created the website which is a dynamic because we have passed the hello world dynamically at the coding time from the code. Thank you.
Welcome friends. In this tutorial, we will see how to connect database to our application. First open the Server Explorer, which is the left side of IDE. There is a one data connection tab. Right click on data connection and click add connection. It will show one window in which various database type is exist. Select Microsoft SQL Server database file. I have created one database and I will connect the database with this application. So click on browse button and browse the database where it is located. I have located my database into sample folder and student database. Click on open and click on test connection to test the connection. We can see test connection is succeeded. Press OK and then again OK. Database will be loaded. Just expand the student database. Expand the tables. We can see there is a one table called student master. If you want to open the table definition, then right click on table and then select open definition. We can see various columns or fields in the database. So this way we can connect our database to our application. Thank you. Welcome friends. In this video tutorial, we will see how to present dataset in our web application. So to present the data in our web page, first go to Solution Explorer. We can see there is a new folder called app_data. We can add this folder by clicking on our project, add ASP.NET folder, and in that folder application_data. I have put my database in this folder. So when I click on student database, it will automatically connect my database to the application. So we don't need to connect each time database with our application. Now I want to display list of students. So I am going to print student list in h1 tag. Let's see, student list in header tag is printed. I will also set a title of the web page, students. Now go to design view. So now we will see how to show data list in our web page. Go to Server Explorer. Now drag student master table on your page. We can see one grid view is generated with the SQL data source. Now let's see by running this application. Press Ctrl F5 or directly by run button. We can see the data in the database is on web page, so we can see all the data and all the fields of the table is generated and it is displayed on the web page. Now let's see what code is generated in the source. For a data grid view, we can see HTML code is generated, which is a data grid view, and all the field is derived from the database: ID, name, address, gender, etc. etc. One more control called SQL data source is generated. In SQL data source, all the configuration of deriving dataset from the database is generated. We can see query of the selection is also there, and one connection string, which is the most important part of the database. We can see connection string name is student connection string. This string is from web config file. So let's go to the Solution Explorer and open web config file. There is a one connection string, student connection string 1. Complete path of the database is given in the connection string or database in application underscore data folder. So there is a SQL Express is needed. There is a one attribute called integrated security. If you want to provide authentication at a time of database access, then we have to set this field as a false, but we don't want to do that. So this is a way of presenting a data set from the database. Thank you.
Welcome friends. In this tutorial we will study about forms. In the web form we can place various elements like a text box, buttons, radio button and checkbox and other also. So in this example we will see how to send the data to the server using the postback. So let's create a code for a form. First I'm writing h1 tag. In h1 tag, this is the example of form. Now go to toolbox and select label control, which is a server control. When double click on the label of a toolbox, the code of label will be automatically generated. Now go to design view and click on label control and right click on label control and select properties. Properties are the various attributes to set various views and format the label. ID property is used to identify the label at the coding time uniquely. So I am going to set this property with form label. Now from the toolbox I am also adding one more control. It is a button. Button is added automatically and I am setting its properties, which is text properties, which I want to display in button hit me. Now double click on the button. The code, which is the click event of button, is generated. This code will be executed on the server side. When I press or hit the button, it will generate postback event on the server side and execute this button 1 underscore click event. We can see in the code of ASP button there is a run at attribute, which means run at servers. It will run on server, and on click it will call button 1 underscore click function. So in this event I want to change the value of label, so let's change it. Label name is form label. It will display in IntelliSense. Press dot and select text property. It will be also displayed by IntelliSense, and give assignment operator which is in C# and give any string to display message in the label. This is a example of form. So let's run and check. Now let's click on the button. We can see the value of the label is changed. This is an example of form. So this way we can use form, and we can retrieve data from the text box, and we can request using that data to the server, and server will respond to our request. Thank you. Hello friends, in this tutorial we will see how to separate presentation logic and the code. So go to the Solution Explorer and add new item and select web form. Below select place code in a separate file. This will create separate file for the coding. Change the name of the page separate example and click on add. Now go to Solution Explorer. We can see separate example is added to our solution, and when we expand the separate solution, it will show separate example.aspx.cs, which is the code file for the separate example.aspx. We can also see in the source code, which is the separate example.aspx. In the beginning we can see code file which is linked to this or source code file. This is because we want to link our various elements as controls to our code file. So as we have discussed in previous example, same example I will do in this tutorial but using a separate code file. So let's do once again. Go to design view, press enter, go to toolbox, get a one label, set a property of label to any LBL SAP. Now add a set the property of button to hit me and double click on the button. We can see the separate code file is generated, the event button 1 underscore click. In previous example we have seen that the code is generated in same source code file, but in this example we can see that the code is generated in separate file called separate example.aspx.cs. Now we will change the property of label lblsap.text is equal to anything we want to print. This is example, and let's save by Ctrl S and run Ctrl F5. Let's hit the button. You can see the property of label is changed. Thank you. Welcome friends. In this tutorial we will see how to create a web form for data entry type application. We have already seen web forms, but we didn't have seen how to enter the details or how to create the form which accept the details of particular data. So now let's create that type of form. Go to Solution Explorer, and I have created one web form. So I have opened webform.aspx, which is created by me. Now here I am going to create one simple table for better formatting of the form. In the div tag, let's create a table which contains 2 columns and 4 rows. Now I need a 4 rows, so I will just copy and paste. Now I want to add the details of the student information, so I'm writing various details like a name of the students, address of the students, standard of the students, and gender of the students. In these columns I will put a standard web control. When we want to make a data entry application, then there is a two options. One is building using standard HTML controls, and other is using server control, which is a ASP.NET controls. So I will create application using the ASP.NET standard web controls. So go to toolbox and select text box. So just select text box from the toolbox and set the property of the text box. We'll set id property of this text box to txt name. We can also copy text box and paste it in column, but we have to change the property. So we are just copying paste various controls and setting it properties. Now after creating text box and setting these properties, I will add a one button from the toolbox. Add a button and set its text property to submit. Now we have created one form. Let's run. We can see form is created. We can enter the data into the web form, and when we submit, it will submitted to the server. Server will execute the event if we have defined any postbacks. Currently we haven't any postbacks on the server side, so it will do nothing. When we submit the data using the submit button of the server control, then data in the text box stays as it is. That is different from the HTML controls. If you want to see what is the effect after response from the server, then we can right click on a web page in the browser and click on view page source. We can see in the table there is a text box control, and the value of text box is John Martin, which is response from the server, and it is automatically converted into the HTML form. So this is about data entry and data entry application in the ASP.NET using ASP.NET server controls. Thank you. Hello friends, in this tutorial we will study about how to handle postbacks. We have already created one student information form which contain name, address, standard and gender of the students. Now we will show these inputted fields into the labels. So now first we will create label controls into our forms. So let's create first label controls. Add the label control from the toolbox and set its id value to lbl name. Copy the label and paste it and set its property value to lbl address. Take another label control and set its property value to lbl standard. and take one more, set ID to LBL gender. Now we want to change this labels text property to appropriate field which is inputted. Means now we want to handle post back event of submit button and we will code it. So now we want to give LBL name dot text and we will assign value into this label from text box called txt name dot text. So when we input value into text box and click on the button, then label LBL name will contain the value of the text box. Now similarly we assign values to other labels from its appropriate text box. LBL gender.text is equal to txt gender.text. LBL standard.text is equal to txt standard.text. Now let's run and check. John Martin in the name, address is Wall Street, standard is 3 and gender is male. Now click on the submit button. When we click on the submit button, we can see the values of the label is changed dynamically and at the runtime. So when we click on the submit button, the postback event is executed and it changes the value of all label controls. So using the postback, we can handle various events by which we can change the contents of a label control and properties of the various controls. Thank you. Data binding expressions are used to bind the data with the various type of control without using postbacks. You can see we have taken the three labels called LBL name, LBL address, LBL standard and LBL gender. So we will bind the data which is inputted from these text boxes to these labels. So go to the source of this page. Now in the control ASP label, write a text which is a attributes or a property of the label control and is equal to less than sign, percentage sign. Visual Studio will automatically complete this tag or this block and then write hash. After that write here controls the name from which you want to take input. For example, we want to take input from txt name dot text. We must have to write here exact name of the control because here IntelliSense is not provided by the Visual Studio IDE, so we have to care about this. Now we will do same thing for other controls also, copying just and paste into others, but after that changing the text control. Here is it txt address, other is txt standard and then txt gender. Now go to the design view. Now click anywhere in the page so it will show code behind. Now you can see the page load event. Page load event is executed each time when page is loaded. When post back event of particular control is executed, then page load event also will be executed. So to enable the data binding expression, we must have to call data binding method. So write page dot data binding braces and semicolon. It will call the data binding method. Now go to the web form and run. Now enter the data in the text boxes. John Martin, address is Wall Street, standard is 3 and gender is male. Now click on the submit button. We can see data from the text box is delivered or copied or assigned to the label controls. So using data binding, we can do actions like a submit or post back event, but it will just assign the value, not execute code. So this was a data binding expressions. Thank you. Welcome friends. In this tutorial, we will study about variables. Variables are used to store some value. You can see we have created one page. In this page, you can see there are two text boxes. First is for accepting first number, second is for accepting second number. In this application, we will do addition, subtraction, division and multiplication operations. So when we enter the two numbers and click on the plus button, it will show the output of the addition in the result text box. So let's do this using variables. For that, first click on the plus button and generate click event of plus button. It will generate code or event for the plus button. Now in the class, not in the button event, in the class declare two variables, integer number 1 and integer number 2, and then declare one float variable called result. Now we will utilize these variables. There are different types of data types. As per our need, we have to define our variables for particular data types. Now we will store output of the first text box into number 1. So write number 1 is equal to txt number 1 dot text and semicolon. The text box number 1 dot text will return a string value, and we are storing this value into integer type variable. This is not valid, so we have to convert this string value into the integer value. So one function called convert dot to integer 32 or 16, anyone can you use, is used, and pass string as a parameter which is to be converted. Same as write number 2, same as for variable number 2, we have just copied and changed the values of text boxes and variables. Add buttons click event, I want to add the two number, so I will do the sum of two numbers and I will store it in some variable. Here it is a result. So number 1 plus number 2. Now same operation we will perform for other, for example for subtraction, for multiplication, for division and all of 4. For subtraction we will utilize same code, we will just change sign of operations. But at a time of division we have to care about type conversion. When we are dividing one integer number by other integer number, then it will result integer, but we want to store float value, so convert it to the float using casting. So we have completed our program. Give the inputs. First we will perform addition. We can see the output: multiplication, addition, subtraction, division and multiplication. So this is the use of variables. Thank you. Welcome friends. In this chapter we will see use of loops. In this example we have taken one text box which accepts how many times you want to execute loops, means number of iterations. We have taken one button which will generate loop execution. When we click on button, loop will be start to execute, and one text area, it will display the iteration of the loop. So let's code the generate loop click event. There are various loops, for example while loop, do loop and for loop. In for loop we have to create initialization first. We can initialize
by integer any variable name which is a control variable. We have to initialize with any number and column. After that, give condition. We have a condition which is inputted in the text box. We will give I less than or equal to, and we will first convert the text box string value to integer. Convert dot to integer 32 txt time text, and after that we will increment the value of loop control variable. Loop control variable is incremented by 1 when loop executed one time. We will write the iteration of the loop in the text box. So let's write txt loop dot text. This is the shorthand assignment operator. We will print this is ith iteration and leave slash n, which is a new line character, and semicolon. Now let's run the program and see the output. Enter the times you want to execute a loop. Suppose we want to execute 6 times, then give 6 and click on generate loop. We can see at each iteration the string is printed. This is the 1th iteration and up to 6th iteration. So this is the use of for loop. Thank you.
Welcome friends. In this tutorial we will study about functions. Function is a block of code which can be called repeatedly. So now let's define functions. We have one web page which is student information form. Now I want to design function on. When I click, that function must be called. So that function retrieve the value of the page which is entered in the form. So to define a function, I will give first access specifier, after that return type, and then function name which is retrieve, and you can give optional arguments. In this example I want to just assign values to the label which is entered in the text boxes. So lbl name.text is equal to txt name.text, txt address.text is equal to lbl address.text is equal to txt address.text. Now we have assigned values to the label. Now we have to call this method. So to call this method, just write function name which is retrieve and braces. Now let's define another function called clear, which is also public. In clear function we will clear the contents of the text box. So txt standard.text is equal to null value txt gen.text is equal to null value, and all other text box we will assign null values. So it will clear the text boxes. Now go to the web form which is a design page and add new one button. Set its property to button clear and set it text property to clear. Now on the clear button, the click event, we will call clear function. Now let's see output. First we are entering different details in the form. We are submitting and we can see we got the output into the labels. Now I want to create the data which is entered in the text box. So I will click on the clear button and data will be cleared. So this way we can define the functions. We can also define parameterized function and function with return type. So this is the funda of C#. Thank you. Welcome friends. In this tutorial we'll study about how to create web controls. Web controls are the special features provided by ASP.NET. When we want to define some common features, then we can use web controls. For example, in our page there is some links and headers. These links and headers are common to all pages. So we have to copy just this code and we have to put this code in all pages. But if we don't want to do this, then we can use web user control. So web user control saves our lots of times and it can be reusable. If we change the user control, then change will be reflected in all other pages that inherits that user control. So to create a web user control, go to Solution Explorer and right click on Solution, add new item and select web user control. Give name to web user control. We are giving header. The extension of web user control is .ascx. Place this code in separate file and click on add. So we can see one control line is generated which shows language is equal to C# and code file is equal to header.ascx.cs, which is our postback code file. So now we go to our web forms and we open the source. We just cut our header and put it in user control. Now let's see design view of user control. We can see we have created this user control. Now if we want to put this user control in our form, then go to our form, put your cursor. When you want to put user control, go to Solution Explorer, just drag this user control to that cursor. You can see user control is placed in our web form. So now we can use this user control in other forms also. So this saves lots of time in our web application and it is the main use of web user control. Now let's run it and see what is the output. We can see user control is at the header of the page. So this is the main use of user control. Thank you. Hello friends, in this tutorial we will see how to register web user control. There are two ways to place our user control in our page. One is by directly dragging and dropping in our page and other is by registering user control to our page. We will see second method for registering a user control. For example, we want to register our user control for this page. So to register user control, first type a less than sign. We can see the IntelliSense will automatically give us some options. Select a register options, press enter and then write src, means I am getting my user control file from the source which is in Solution Explorer. So click on source and give assignment or a is equal to operator. The list of user control will be displayed. If the user control in the folder, then you can pick up by URL, but our user control is in solution, so please select. Now we have to give tag prefix. So tag prefix is the name of user control. We are giving UC1 for user control 1 and we have to give tag name which is header. So there is no error display, because if there is an error then our Visual Studio will display error automatically. Now we have to put the user control in our web form. Take cursor to the point where you want to put the user control. Type UC1. So now IntelliSense will be display. Now IntelliSense will display UC1 header. So select it. Type run at is equal to server. Notice if we don't write run at is equal to server, then this server control will not be run at the server. So when we run the application, it will not display. So take a look at design and let's run. We can see we have successfully placed user control using registering manually. We can click on forms, we can click on web forms, we can switch over to forms. So user control will be look as it is, but contents of the page will be changed. Thank you. Welcome friends. In this tutorial we will study about various validation controls, and we will learn how to validate the input of the forms. ASP.NET provides special controls called validation controls. To validate the input of the form, we can utilize that validation controls. So go to the toolbox, and in the validation tab you can see there are various types of validation controls. Each validation controls have special purpose. We want to validate the name input, so get cursor near to name text box and go to the toolbox and pick up a required field validator. Now we have to set the different properties of required field validator. So right click on it and set different properties. First we will set ID property of required field validator to RQ name, and then control to validate property. This property shows which control you want to validate. Here we want to validate txt name, so select txt name. After that, which error message you want to display. So we want to display please enter name. After that you can set formatting of validation controls. We are setting red color for error message. One more property called validation group. Each validator control needs validation group. So we are setting here 1. We will see use of this property later. Now we are just copying paste and we are validating other types of text box. So setting just properties. Now standard text box contains numeric value. If we want to validate that please enter numeric value in the standard text box, then we can do this by using regular expression validator. So we will see use of regular expression validator also. So go to the toolbox and pick up the regular expression validate, set its different properties. Validation expression is the most important property of this regular expression validator. We want to validate for a numeric value, so type 0, 0, hyphen, 9, closing square bracket and star. Set its validation group property to 1 and set submit buttons validation group property to 1. Now let's run this application. When we click on the submit button without entering details, we can see all the validators shows error message. If we enter the detail in the text box, then that error message will be invisible. Suppose we enter the value in the standard which is not numerical, then required field will not display error, but please enter valid standard, it will display error. And if we enter valid standard, then it will also be invisible. So this is the use of validation control. Thank you.
Welcome friends. In this tutorial we will see how to control validation display message. We have already validated our form. Now we want to display our error message in interactive way. So let's first set required fields and other validators text property to star. After giving text property to star, go to the toolbox and select validation summary control. This control is used to show the validation summary in which controls are showing errors. So go to the property validation summary. We don't want to change the validation summary's ID, but go to the show message box property. When we want to display error in the form of message box, then you can set this property to true and set the show summary property to true, because we don't want to display errors in the form of text. Set the validation group property to 1. Now let's run. Press submit without entering details. So we can see one message box is pop up in which various errors are written. Please enter name, please enter address and others. Now you can see standard controls contains two validators. One is for required field and one is a regular expression. When regular expression is not in use, then it leaves some space. So we want to remove this space. So let's do this. Go to the required field validations properties and give display property to dynamic. Give each controls display property to dynamic. Now run the application. Now you can see we don't have validate standard and it doesn't show the space. So this way we can control our display messages. We can also give various format by using CSS, by using styles, and we can also give color formats to our validation message when we are not displaying using text boxes. Thank you.
Welcome friends. In this tutorial we will study about view state. We have created one new page called viewstate.spx. In this page we will show the use of view state. In all web application, whenever a web page is processed at the server, the page is created from scratch. In traditional web application, the server discards the page information after processing and sending page to the browser. Because the page information is not preserved on the server, the web page is called stateless. The framework automatically saves the state of the page and its current properties and the state of the server control and their base property which each round trip using the view state. So this is the use of view state. Now let's see how view state works. So we are taking one combo box, which is a drop down list, adding items to the combo box. Now we have added 3 items. Set its enable postback property to true because we want to enable postback because we want to execute event on the item changed event of the combo box. Now I want to show which color is displayed. So for that, take one label. We have taken one label. Now on the item changed event of the drop down list, write label 1.text is equal to drop down 1.selected variate. So this is the use of view state implicitly by server. Let's look at the view source. We can see one input type which is hidden is used to storing a view state, and it contains some encrypted information in base 16 which we cannot understand, but ASP.NET server decrypt very easily. So this is about view state. We can also pass view state to other pages by creating view state object, but view state used for only post method. We cannot utilize view state into the get method. So this is the limitation which can be resolved by session, which we will show in next video. Thank you. Welcome friends. In this tutorial we will study about session. Session is used to pass the information between the web pages. So session is a one type of object which stores some information. We can access that information from anywhere from any page. The session object is used to store data across multiple requests for each user. When a session begins, a unique key assigned to the user. ASP maintains a session state for each user by providing the client with this unique key. This key is stored in HTTP cookie that client sends to the server on each request. The server can then read the key from the cookie and reveal the server session. So now in this example we will create session from one page and we will retrieve that session in another page. You can see I have taken one text box in which user will type some information and we will pass that information to another page when we click on the create session button. When we click on the button, we will create session on the click event of this button, and I have created one more page called retrieve session.aspx. In this page, when we click on the retrieve session button, the session which is passed from the create session.aspx page is retrieved and the value of session is assigned to this label. So let's learn how to create session and retrieve it. Click on the create session button. Session is an object we can create using session, start the square bracket. We have to pass index which is a unique key. So we will set unique key user name and we will assign this user name to some information which is passed from the text box, which is text box 1 dot text. So the session is created. Now I want to retrieve this session information. So go to the another page called retrieve session.aspx and double click on the retrieve session button. I want to show the session information in label, so type the label name lbl session dot text is equal to session object index which we have passed in create session page, which is user name, close the square bracket, and we have to convert this session into toString. So convert with toString method and give semicolon.
Now we have created a session. So now I want to redirect to page retrieve session.aspx. For this, response.redirect method is used, in which we have to pass the argument as a page name with its extension, which is retrieve session.aspx. Now let's run it. We are passing John Martin and let's click on create session. Page is redirect to retrieve session.aspx. Now click on retrieve session button, which will be retrieve the session. You can see John Martin is retrieved, which is we have passed in the session. So this is the use of session. Thank you.